Rain tapped against the kitchen windows as Clara stood alone in the soft glow of the overhead light. The house was still. Too still, really, but the quiet wasn't empty. It carried years of careful footsteps and words left unsaid. She dried her hands on a dish towel and glanced at the pie cooling on the counter. Thin ribbons of steam rose from the golden crust, carrying the warm scent of cinnamon and baked apples through the room. For Clara, cooking had always been the easiest way to say what her mouth couldn't. 3 years earlier, she had married Michael, a gentle man with tired eyes and a busy schedule. He worked long hours but always tried to fill their home with warmth. When Clara said, "I do," she didn't just gain a husband. She walked into a life already written by someone else, complete with memories and a teenage son who didn't quite know what to do with her. Alex had just turned 18 back then. Nearly a man, tall and reserved, with sharp eyes that seemed to watch everything but reveal nothing. He was never unkind to Clara, never rude. But there was always a polite distance between them, like a glass wall neither knew how to break. Clara understood. Alex had lost his mother years ago, and no one could ever fill that space. She never tried. Instead, she hoped to quietly earn a small corner in his life, a place where kindness might someday take root. Some days, she felt they were making progress. Other days, they were strangers sharing a roof. That Sunday evening leaned toward the uncertain side. Michael had left for work hours ago, promising a late return, and the house had settled into an uneasy hush. Clara decided to bake. Maybe something simple and warm could breathe life into the empty rooms. As the pie cooled, she looked around, at the wooden table, the soft yellow lights, the familiar space she had slowly claimed as her own. Still, something felt unfinished. Then she heard it. Tires on wet pavement. A car door. A few seconds later, the front door opened and closed with a quiet thud. Alex was home. Clara's chest tightened. The same small nervous flutter she still felt whenever she tried to reach him. Footsteps moved down the hallway until he appeared in the kitchen doorway, shaking raindrops from his dark jacket. His hair was messy from the wind, and exhaustion pulled at his features. He gave her the usual polite nod. "Hey." She smiled gently. "Hey, yourself." Clara picked up a small plate where she had already placed a slice of pie. The crust golden, the filling settled just right. She stepped toward him, holding it out with quiet hope in her eyes. "I tried a new recipe today," she said softly. Alex glanced at the plate, then at her. Surprise flickered across his face. Clara noticed his hesitation but kept her smile warm. "Go on," she added with a playful tilt in her voice. "I promise it's not poisonous." For a moment, he just looked at the slice. Then he gave a small shrug and took the plate. He stepped into the kitchen, setting his bag down near the table. Clara pretended to straighten a spoon on the counter, so she wouldn't seem like she was watching too closely. The kitchen was silent except for the rain and the quiet hum of the refrigerator. She realized how much she wanted him to like it. Not because of the pie itself, but because of what it meant. A small invitation. A simple bridge between two people who had never quite figured out how to meet in the middle. Alex took a bite. He paused, chewing slowly. Then his expression shifted, just slightly, and surprise brightened his eyes. Clara noticed immediately. She looked up, curiosity lighting her face. Alex stared at the pie for another second, as if deciding something. Then he let out a quiet breath and spoke. "This is actually really good." The words were simple, but for Clara, they felt enormous. It wasn't just about the pie. It was the first time Alex sounded truly relaxed around her. For the first time in years, the space between them didn't feel so wide. Neither of them knew it yet. But this small moment in the quiet kitchen was the beginning of something that would slowly reshape the entire house. Alex took another bite and looked at the slice again with quiet surprise. The warm taste of cinnamon and soft apples reminded him of something familiar, something comforting he hadn't felt in a long time. Clara stood near the counter, wiping a bowl that was already clean, but her eyes kept drifting toward him from the corner. She didn't want to push. She knew how easily Alex would shut down if the moment felt forced. He took another bite, slower this time, and leaned back in the wooden chair. The kitchen lights were warm. Rain tapped against the window. For years, Alex had walked through this room quickly, grabbing something from the fridge before heading upstairs, keeping conversations short. Tonight felt different. The pie was simple, but the effort behind it made him pause. He noticed something he had ignored before. Clara was always trying, in small, quiet ways. She cooked meals. She kept the house warm. She greeted him kindly every single day, even when he gave her nothing back. She had never pushed too hard, never tried to replace his mother. She had simply stayed patient. He set the fork down and looked toward her. "Where did you learn this?" Clara turned, surprised he had started the conversation himself. A small smile appeared as she dried her hands. "My grandmother used to make something similar. I tried to remember it, changed a few things." Alex nodded slowly, picturing the effort it must have taken to get it right. "Well," he said honestly, "it worked." Clara laughed softly. The sound filled the quiet kitchen in a gentle way that made the room feel more alive. Instead of leaving like he usually did, Alex stayed at the table and finished the slice while they kept talking. The conversation started small, but it moved naturally. He mentioned a difficult college class and a professor who gave surprise quizzes every week. Clara listened with real interest, asking questions that showed she cared about the details, not just the surface. He told her about a hockey game he had watched with friends the night before, describing how the final score shocked everyone. Clara admitted she didn't understand hockey very well, but she enjoyed hearing him talk about something he loved. The minutes passed. Alex realized something strange. The kitchen no longer felt like a place he had to rush through. It felt comfortable, like somewhere he could stay without feeling awkward. After a while, he stood and carried his empty plate to the sink without being asked. Clara thanked him, and he shrugged with a small smile. When he turned around, he noticed the pie still sitting on the counter with several slices left. "You should make this again sometime," he said casually, though his voice carried genuine interest. Clara raised an eyebrow playfully. "That good?" Alex nodded. "Yeah, actually." Her smile widened just a little. She hadn't been expecting praise, but hearing it from him felt meaningful. Just then, Clara's phone buzzed on the counter. She checked the message, Michael, saying work would keep him late again that night. She told Alex, and he nodded like he already expected it. Michael's job always kept him busy. The house returned to quiet again, but it wasn't the same heavy silence from earlier. Alex picked up his bag and walked toward the hallway. Halfway there, he paused and turned back. Clara was placing the pie carefully into a container, humming softly to herself. For a moment, Alex just watched, noticing how peaceful she looked in the warm light. She had been trying to make this house feel like a real home for all of them. That thought stayed with him longer than he expected. "Hey, Clara?" She looked up right away. "Yeah." Alex hesitated. Then, "Thanks for the pie." Clara gave a gentle nod, her smile warm but not overly emotional. "You're welcome." Alex continued up the stairs. But as he walked toward his room, he noticed something unusual. The evening had felt lighter than most days in this house. A simple slice of pie had turned into a real conversation, something that had never happened between them before. He set his bag down in his room and looked out the window at the rain falling across the streetlights. For the first time in years, Alex wondered if the distance he kept from Clara had been unnecessary all along. Downstairs, Clara finished cleaning the kitchen and turned off one of the lights. She paused for a moment, remembering Alex's words and the small smile he had given before going upstairs. It wasn't a big moment, but it felt important. Something had quietly shifted that night, like the beginning of a door slowly opening. Neither of them spoke about it, yet both felt the same quiet thought forming. Maybe the house didn't have to feel divided anymore. And maybe the next conversation between them would come even easier than the last. The next week moved quickly. Before Alex realized it, another quiet Sunday had arrived. The weather was calmer this time, soft sunlight falling across the neighborhood streets. He had spent most of the afternoon studying at the campus library, but as he drove home, he caught himself smiling at a simple thought. The apple pie. The moment in the kitchen had stayed in his mind longer than he expected. When he pulled into the driveway and stepped out of the car, he noticed the house windows glowing warmly with the evening light. He walked up to the door, and the second he stepped inside, a familiar smell drifted through the air. Cinnamon. Sweet apples. Alex paused. Then he laughed quietly to himself. Clara had made the pie again. He dropped his bag near the hallway table and followed the smell straight into the kitchen. Clara stood near the oven, carefully placing the pie onto the counter with thick oven mitts. She turned when she heard his footsteps and smiled like she had been expecting him. "Perfect timing," she said cheerfully. Alex leaned against the doorway, crossing his arms. "You remembered what I said?" Clara shrugged lightly. "You said you liked it." He stepped further into the kitchen, noticing the same warm feeling that had filled the room the week before. Soft music played from Clara's phone on the counter. Something calm and old-fashioned that blended with the quiet evening. Sunlight faded through the window, while the pie cooled slowly on the rack. Alex realized the kitchen had become the heart of the house again. Something he hadn't felt since he was young. "Smells even better this time," he said. Clara laughed softly. "Let's hope it tastes the same." She cut a slice and handed it to him, just like before. Alex took the plate without hesitation this time and sat at the table. The moment felt natural now, without the awkward pause that once filled the space between them. Clara poured 2 glasses of iced tea and sat across from him while he took the first bite. Alex nodded with approval almost immediately. "Still great." Clara leaned back in her chair, clearly pleased but trying not to make a big deal out of it. They talked. The conversation moved easily again. Alex shared stories from school, describing a project he was working on with classmates. Clara told him about a small community event she had helped organize during the week. The more they spoke, the clearer it became that the quiet wall between them had slowly faded. Neither of them had planned for it, but patience and simple kindness had changed things over time. Then, the sound of tires on the driveway. Alex looked toward the window. "Dad's home early." The front door opened, and Michael stepped inside, carrying the tired energy of a long workday. But he was smiling the moment he walked into the kitchen. "Now this is a welcome sight," he said, spotting the pie on the counter and Alex sitting at the table. Clara stood to greet him while Alex cut another small piece from a slice. Michael loosened his tie and laughed. "I leave for work and come back to a bakery." Clara shook her head playfully. "One pie. Not a bakery." Michael sat down with them, and Clara cut another slice, so he could try it too. Soon, the 3 of them were sitting together at the table, talking and laughing in a way that felt easy and natural. Michael told a funny story about a mistake someone made at work, and Alex fired back with a joke that made both adults laugh. Clara watched the 2 of them with quiet happiness, noticing how relaxed Alex looked. For the first time since she married Michael, the house felt complete. Alex looked around the table and felt something shift inside him as well. For years, he had believed things would never feel the same after his mother passed away. When Clara entered their lives, he had kept his distance without really giving her a chance. But now he saw how wrong that had been. Clara had never tried to take anyone's place. She had simply brought warmth, patience, and kindness into their home. Michael finished his slice and nodded with approval. "Clara, this might be your best one yet." Alex laughed. "I told you it was good." Clara looked between them, clearly amused by the sudden team agreement. All right, she said. "I'll add it to the regular menu." The evening continued with simple conversation and shared stories while the last pieces of pie slowly disappeared. Outside, the sky turned darker as the sun set. But inside the house, the warm lights and friendly voices created something the home hadn't felt in a very long time. Weeks turned into months, and the kitchen kept its place as the heart of the house. The apple pie became a regular visitor, sometimes on Sundays, sometimes on rainy evenings, and once, on a random Tuesday, just because Clara felt like it. Each time, Alex appeared in the doorway a little faster. Each time, the conversation lasted a little longer. Michael noticed the change before anyone else did. He came home one evening to find Alex already at the table, helping Clara peel apples without being asked. Michael didn't say a word. He just stood in the hallway for a moment, watching, and then walked away with a quiet smile he couldn't quite hide. That night, after Alex had gone upstairs, Michael found Clara in the living room, curled up with a book. He sat beside her and took her hand. "You've done something I couldn't," he said softly. Clara looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "He was never rude to me, but he was closed, like a door with no handle. I didn't know how to reach him." Michael paused. "You found a way, not by fixing anything, just by being here." Clara squeezed his hand. I didn't do anything special. I just baked pies. Michael shook his head. No. You stayed. The first real test came 3 weeks later. Alex came home from college earlier than usual, and Clara could tell something was wrong before he even opened his mouth. His shoulders were slumped. His eyes looked heavy. He dropped his bag in the hallway and walked straight past the kitchen without a word. Clara didn't follow him. She had learned that lesson well. Never push. Instead, she did what she always did. She went into the kitchen and started baking. This time, it wasn't apple pie. She pulled out flour, sugar, and a bag of lemons from the fridge. Lemon bars. Something bright and a little tart. She worked quietly, measuring and mixing, letting the familiar rhythm calm her own nerves. 40 minutes later, the kitchen smelled like citrus and powdered sugar. Clara cut a small square, placed it on a plate, and carried it upstairs. She knocked softly on Alex's door. Yeah. His voice was muffled. I have something for you, she said gently. No pressure. I'll leave it outside. She set the plate on the floor and walked back downstairs. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. Clara was wiping down the counter when she heard footsteps on the stairs. Alex appeared in the kitchen doorway, plate in hand, half the lemon bar already gone. These are really good, he said. Clara smiled. Thank you. Alex hesitated, then stepped inside and sat at the table. Clara sat across from him, saying nothing. She waited. I failed a midterm, he said finally. His voice was quiet, almost embarrassed. I studied for weeks. I thought I knew the material. But when I saw the exam, my mind just went blank. Clara nodded slowly. That happened to me once in college. Statistics. I stared at the first question for 20 minutes and cried in the bathroom afterward. Alex looked up, surprised. Really? Really? I thought my life was over. Clara leaned back in her chair. It wasn't. I retook the class. Got a B. And no one has ever asked me about my statistics grade since. Alex laughed, a short, surprised laugh. So what you're saying is, it's not the end of the world? I'm saying it feels like the end of the world. But it's not. And you don't have to hide in your room when things get hard. She paused. You can come downstairs. I'll make lemon bars. Alex looked at the plate in his hands. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then he said, My mom used to make lemon bars. The air in the kitchen shifted. Clara felt her chest tighten, but she kept her expression gentle. She did. Alex nodded. When I was a kid, she'd make them after parent-teacher conferences, good or bad. She said lemon bars were for honesty. Clara didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. She just sat there, letting the silence hold whatever weight it needed to hold. After a while, Alex stood up. He carried his plate to the sink, rinsed it, and placed it in the drying rack. Then, he turned to Clara. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you stay? His voice was raw. When I was cold to you. When I barely talked to you for years. Why didn't you give up? Clara took a breath. She had asked herself that question many times, late at night when the house was dark and she wondered if she had made a mistake marrying into a family that didn't fully want her. Because I didn't marry you for who you were then, she said finally. I married your father. But I stayed for the person I thought you could become. And I was patient because you deserved patience. You had already lost so much. The last thing you needed was another person walking away. Alex stared at her. His eyes glistened, but he didn't cry. He just nodded, swallowed hard, and said, I'm sorry. For all those years. Clara stood up and, for the first time since they had met, she opened her arms. Alex hesitated for only a second before stepping into the hug. It was awkward at first. Two people who had spent years keeping distance suddenly close. But then Alex relaxed, and Clara felt him exhale against her shoulder. It's okay, she whispered. We figured it out. That's what matters. That night, Michael came home to find the kitchen empty, but the dishwasher running. He walked upstairs and heard voices coming from Alex's room. Clara and Alex talking and laughing about something he couldn't quite make out. He didn't interrupt. He just stood in the hallway, listening, and felt something in his chest loosen. The house no longer felt like a place where people tiptoed around each other. It felt like a home. The next Sunday, Alex surprised everyone. He showed up at the kitchen door with a bag of groceries: apples, flour, sugar, butter, and a small jar of cinnamon. "My turn," he said. Clara raised an eyebrow. "You're going to bake?" "I'm going to try." Alex set the bag on the counter. "You'll have to tell me if I'm doing it wrong." Michael appeared in the doorway, coffee mug in hand. "Did I just hear that right? My son is voluntarily entering the kitchen." "Don't make it weird, Dad," Alex said, but he was smiling. The three of them spent the afternoon together. Clara guided Alex through the recipe: how to slice the apples evenly, how to know when the crust was the right texture, how to sprinkle cinnamon without dumping half the jar. Michael sat at the table, offering commentary and stealing apple slices when no one was looking. When the pie came out of the oven, it wasn't beautiful. The crust was uneven. Some of the filling had bubbled over onto the tray, but it smelled wonderful. Alex cut the first slice himself and handed it to Clara. She took a bite. Her eyes widened. "Alex, this is actually really good." He grinned. "I had a good teacher." Michael held up his mug like a toast. "To the new family baker." Clara laughed. "To the new family baker."